Welcome to another Lunch with Philip and Greg. Our guest today is Dave Pasulta, who is the CEO and co-founder of iOgrapher and an accidental entrepreneur. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you two gents.
So what is iOgrapher? What is it that you do?
Well, 3 years ago, I was a very happy media teacher at San Marino High School. And my students, I had 130 students all day, and I was just challenged with keeping them busy enough with stuff, with projects and whatnot, because we literally only had maybe 5 cameras in the whole classroom.
Right.
And so what we did was I started to let them use iPhones and iPads because they all had those, and I was getting a lot more work done, but everything was shaky, and it was the audio was bad, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I just got kind of really frustrated and started tinkering in the back room and being a user of Cinema 4D, for example. I drew something that I thought would be a cool case that would hold the iPad or iPhone, and it had handles. So it was a big thing that I had to have handles so I could be steady with it. And I wanted to put it on a tripod, I wanted to put on a lens, and I wanted to put lights and make this fun little toy that people thought was a toy and play games with. Let's turn it into a camera and do some amazing things with it. So I designed it, made a 3D model, spent $200 to get a 3D print of it, and all of a sudden I had this working prototype. And we started to use it around school. And at that time I had taken it to the NAB show. It just happened. And I had taken it there. Every year I took one of my main students with me to the NAB show, and their parents, of course, and they would do interviews with people instead of me. It was kind of a way for me to get out of doing all the interviews and let someone, I would just hold the thing. And I was in there filming, and people were walking around, and they were really interested, but these 4 guys kept following me, and they happened to be Apple engineers. And then, so they were just, what is this? This is amazing, let's talk about this. And then that just started everything rolling. Ended up doing a Kickstarter project, and all of a sudden I'm in Forbes, I'm in New York Times, and the teacher that wants to do well, literally I just wanted to get rich. So, and so we just started, we made one product that time for the iPad mini, and then now we've got, flash forward 3 years, we've got 9 different products, and we sell 84 different SKUs on our website. Wow. And people like the BBC, CNN for journalism are using it, left and writing about how they're using it, mobile journalism, professional sports. We got the Boston Celtics are using it for coaching. We've got the Miami Dolphins. We just sent them stuff this year. They're doing periscoping during practices, or after practices, so people can connect with their players. And then, NASCAR. This might be of interest to you. The Premier League just sent me a tweet where you never heard of them, small thing.
I missed the sports tweet.
Okay. Premier League, the big Manchester United. Okay, so I just found out who they are. And they sent me a big tweet that they did with their interviewing their people with our stuff. So it's going everywhere, colleges, high schools, you name it. And it's just allowed people to create better content with their stuff. So we're in 1,000 Best Buy stores. I retired from teaching, and all I do now is just, really get into every day getting content out there and pushing the brand name. And we're in, I'd say about 13 different countries where we've got distributors, and it's just you said accidental entrepreneur. I have no dreams or aspirations of doing this. I'm working harder now than I ever had in my life. But I love what I do. That's the thing. I've got a big passion for it, and luckily Apple keeps me busy by introducing new devices constantly. So we keep pushing the bar up right now. And of course, with their new, iPad Pro is 4K. Now you got a 4K camera in your little iPad, Pro. It's just getting better and better. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I know. I used an iOgrapher beginning of last year on my family history stuff before I got any of the gear that we now use. Whereas, I'm going to Australia, I'm going to be carrying an iPad anyway because that's my main device. And so I just put it on the little tripod, that very lightweight tripod that you also sell. And, it worked great.
It's simple to use, and it just helps make your regular shooting a little bit better, right?
Yeah. And so,
the second trip back, I had the GoPros and used them because overall it's a little smaller to travel with. But yeah, it worked really well. Did you? A lot of people who come into business accidentally find that the business side of it is more challenging. I was a video person long before I was a video business person. And when I started I had indulgent parents who let me get into my own business by fielding some money and credit references. And so I realized, I've got to make a business out of it. There's a whole business side of the thing.
No, I was very lucky. Everything's kind of led me up to this moment. I mean, I was in, I have a degree in business finance. So I was actually a stockbroker on Wall Street on the 63rd floor of the World Trade Towers for years. And left that because I got discovered by a casting director in New York. And had asked me, do I want to be an extra in Rocky V? And I said, whatever that is, it sounds amazing. I don't have to make cold calls all day. And so I was an extra, and then I fell in love with the film business. I said, this is amazing. And I went into the whole acting thing and moved back to LA and did tons of movies, working with, so I don't want to get into all that, but they can go into the IMDb and check me out if they want. But I've got tons of films and television, Cheers, all these old shows. And at one point I got sick of driving across town to do auditions. I live in Pasadena. Do you want to order?
Yeah. When are you ready? Yeah.
So I'd gotten sick of driving across town, to say 3 lines because I was always like the bodyguard or whatever, So I'm like, geez, I'm gonna go in traffic to meet some cast director to say, hey, stop, I was like, forget it. So I go, I can produce. I know how to put money together, and so I literally coincided around the time of the American film market, and I happened to see a friend there who knew Danny Aiello, who's a famous actor, and then his son was there. His son wanted to direct a movie with his dad. He gave me a script. I said, I can produce this. I had no idea what I was talking about, and so we signed a little paper at the table, and literally in 45 days I had raised $2.5 million to make this movie.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I'm a producer. so I actually started to get into the producing game, and I produced 4 different feature films, and then went into working for, did one with Mel Gibson's company, Icon Entertainment, a film called Wish You Were Dead. Had Mary Steenburgen and Christopher Lloyd and Carrie Elways and all these people, and I actually learned how to produce by that time, and how to find foreign money, and stuff like that, and pre-sales and all that stuff. So really, all the business stuff led up to that and taught me all that. And then last thing I did was to start to do some executive producing for Lifetime Television. And I just got burned out. The business is just like feast and famine and crazy hours. And I said, there's got to be, it was nothing I set out to do, but I was creative and I enjoyed being creative. So I kind of left that. And right around that time, this little camera came out called the DVX 100 and by Panasonic. And I go, this thing shoots like 24 frames per second onto tape, and I can make my own little movies and stuff. So I just got crazy and started, I put 10 grand into this little movie that I found a script. I directed it. We ended up selling it up to Blockbuster for 6 figures because they were buying anything in the world at that time. It was called Death Click, and we shot it all locally in South Pasadena in the mountains about these high school kids that had kind of like a 10 Little Indian story. And just had a blast doing it. I edited it on my old PC using early versions of Premiere, and it was horribly hard and crashing all the time. But the fact that I was doing that was just made me just go nuts. That I could do all this on my own in my house, and so I fell in love. All of a sudden, I became this geek that just fell in love with technology and where we were headed. And it's funny because I was a lifelong PC guy, and my wife says, you should really try. My wife was a production designer for shows like Dexter and other shows. And so she had said, you really got to try Mac. And I said, no, I don't like Apple, And then all of a sudden I went into the Apple place and started to play with the Mac with Final Cut 7. And I was like, this is a little bit easier than Premiere was on the PC. I might try this out. And then so I ended up getting into the Apple world, have never looked back since. And luckily, and I stuck with Premiere for many years, and luckily, it caught up. It was way behind. So, and then just started writing stuff for different publications, and I was having the time of my life. And then all of a sudden, my former high school friend talked to me on Facebook and said, I know you're doing your own thing. but we have a teaching position open here at the local high school, which was my rival high school growing up. And she says, would you want to come and teach media and animation there? And I was like, I mean, I lived literally down the street. I said, let me go check it out. So I went and I said, this is really something that I'd like to maybe try for the next generation of me, you know?
Yeah.
And I got my teaching credential, fell in love with teaching. It was the best thing I ever did. Teachers are horribly underpaid and unappreciated. But
teaching is
you
hard
have
work.
to love it. You have to want to give and do that. And I just fell in love and had a great time teaching. I would have done it till the end of days had I not all of a sudden made this thing. And literally the last semester of teaching, I was, I'd go out into the kids and I'd say, look, today we're going to do a short film this week, and these are the parameters of it. Here's your schedule, you know, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll be back in the room. And I would run back in my office, and I would like, oh my God, it looks like a distribution here, and I better sell, you know. I was going crazy, and Best Buy had actually said in a meeting, says you kind of might want to leave that and just focus on this because this is growing. I'm like, so I had to make the call, and it was pretty sad. But in fact, my main students at the time, my advanced class, made this big video about, you know, how you're leaving, and we're going to be, you know, it made me cry. That was great.
Teaching is its own real reward. I mean, it's hard work. I've only ever done up to one day at a time.
Right.
And with people who've paid to be there, or
Right.
at least had some motivation to be there, I can't imagine how hard it must be to teach in general schools where basically most kids don't really want to be there.
Right.
They don't really appreciate the fact that they're learning. I think probably in media studies you probably had a little bit.
Well, I was lucky. I mean, I was San Marino's it's ranked as one of the top, if not the first or second place in California in their programs, and the kids were just getting stressed out, like it's because they were in these incredibly hard math classes or English classes or science or history, these advanced placement things, and they were just like, oh my God, I'm gonna. And so they'd come in my class, and I would make it just creative and fun, and let's tell stories, and you know, and so I was pretty popular, so it was kind of fun.
You've been right through all of these changes then. You've gone from being in production at the expensive Series N right through to the democratized production. What's been the biggest change?
The biggest change is that people can do great stories now on these little things you have in your pocket. I mean, I used to tell my students, every one of you is a documentary teller. You're a storyteller. Every day you're doing, you know, Snapchats and Instagrams, and you're telling stories about stuff that you're doing, your life. So now learn how to tell a story correctly, and you got it made. I mean, and it's not because you're going to be a filmmaker or whatever. You might go into business and need to market your company. You know, you may get into social media marketing. I mean, there's a million avenues and video. And I think, was it Zuckerberg said in the next few years that Facebook's going to be all video. You know, and so he's a pretty smart guy. But you know, so the fact. I mean, think about the old days. I mean, you guys are much younger than me, but I remember this.
Probably not.
The 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter. You know, all that. I mean, it was impossible. I mean, my dad was like, "I'm not buying that for you because I got to buy this projector too." And, and where are you going to develop this? You know?
My parents did reasonably well in Tupperware, so
Oh.
we did have a Super 8.
Oh,
standard
wonderful.
And then a Super 8 camera and projector, so I cut my first teeth.
See, that's great.
I got popular in high school with the other filmmakers.
Right.
Because I had the gear.
Right, no, that's brilliant, you know. But back then, think about you wanted to edit. I mean, what were you gonna? I mean, what, Moviola or you know?
Splicing block.
Splicing block.
Initially the liquid, then tape smoke. Tape
Right.
made it life a bit easier.
And it was impossible. But and what I would tell, and it's funny because people were like, well, I'm looking at this new Red that's 8K and this and that, and you know what? If I'm going to go do Lord of the Rings, I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
But for my day-to-day stuff, that is plenty of power for you, you know, and just learn how to use it. And
Yeah, because that's really the big thing, is that there are now so many more video cameras, because you go out and you buy a still camera, and of course it's got video capabilities in it and really, really nice lenses available. Then you if you really want it, you can spend a couple of $100 on a GoPro. So there's another 4K potential, maybe not at a couple of $100, but yeah. And then of course you've got your iPhones and your iPads, and we did it one day, we counted up how many cameras are in the house.
Oh, I think it was 11 or 12 HD or 4K capable cameras in the house.
Yeah.
And that's not counting 2 for every iOS device, that's only counting 1 per iOS device.
And you can't really count the cameras that are built into the computers because they're made for, you're not really going to be shooting with them, but that's a lot of cameras.
And the kids, okay, so being around all these students really showed me what the future is. They're interested in storytelling. They're interested in watching good content. They don't care if it's in 4K. They don't care if it's like an hour long. They just want to be entertained.
Yeah.
If it's 15 seconds, and they're all of a sudden 27 million people watch this thing. I mean, so, and I would try and pound in their heads, God, this is such a great, imagine back in the day, if we had a YouTube ability and these things, and we could have been our own channel and tell stories. I mean, I'm just too old to get into that now, which makes me so sad. But my son does little videos on his video games he plays on the iPad. We hook it up to the Mac. We got ScreenFlow going, and we have an iPad is one of the cameras filming him. And he tells how to play these little games. He's got like 3,000 followers, but he's 8 years old. I mean, and you see some of these people that have these millions of followers making hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year. I mean,
I've long advocated that video production is just going to become another form of literacy. Almost everybody reads and writes to some level, and so everybody will produce video to some level, whether it's a 6-second Vine, or still do Vine.
That's true. That's funny. That's kind of a dying one, but yeah. I was on. My wife had shared something on Facebook today about a Nigerian man who's in the Olympics, the javelin. And as a little boy, they didn't have a program that he can go to the local, he watched YouTube videos on how to throw the javelin. And that led him to make his own little javelins from sticks he found and whatever. And then eventually he got found by the Olympic Committee, and he's one of the favorites to win the gold at the thing this year, but he had no formal training, he had nothing. He just learned how to do this on his own, watching these videos, So there's so many. I'm one of those that like to watch a video to learn something from it. And sit in front of a book. It's like, oh, and I had plenty of students that were like that loved, that was their visual learning. That's the way to go. So.
And the implications for documentary production are pretty immense.
There's
come back to a story where before I left Australia, so it's an old story now. I was working on a documentary about this young performer, Fred. But his big night, the big breakthrough night when he was discovered by some established artists in a masterclass, there are 0 photographs and 0 video because it was 98-ish. So, we're talking DVX 1000 for production, and a little DVX 700 for backup, but there was just nothing from this night because nobody expected anything to come from it.
Right.
Except for now, there would have, you'd be able to switch a multicam.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
you'd have video from every angle. You'd have probably an official recording. You'd have family and friends doing recording.
And lots of vertical video.
And lots of look, you'd put up 3 angles together.
Right. You saw that at the LaxiPug the other night. I was showing just the basics of what we can do with, put in your backpack 4 devices, and all of a sudden you got a multi-camera shoot, and I could stream that, and I could, it's like, come on, where's all the cables and the big deck I need and all that? Granted, it's not. I don't think it's at the NBC network Olympics stage yet, but it's getting there.
But you don't need that for everything.
You don't need that for
everything.
No.
And that's the thing, is that people who are entrenched in the business, or 20 or 30,000 of them, don't realise that Premiere Pro has probably 800,000 users, Final Cut 10 probably 2 million sold.
That just do
and
little fun.
Media Composer's probably like 100,000.
I think there's a lot more journalism that's happening now with shooting with an iPad, even cutting it on an iPad by the journalist. So
in fact, the BBC, for example, there's I'll have to get you his name, and I can't think of it right now, but he's I can't think of his name. He does a bunch of how he's using all of his iPhone to go and interview all these. He says it's just easier to take to the interviews. When I go through customs and Europe, this whole series on interviewing CEOs. And all he did was have his iPhone, the videographer, and lenses, and Rode mic, and he was good to go. And he would cut it right there and get it back to the people. And they would add lower thirds, whatever, and get it up on the news. The BBC Golf Channel uses all of our stuff for quick, boom, boom, boom. So it's just they don't need. I mean, you see CNN.
Yeah.
There'll be someone who shot some video from, like the other night, it was a horrible thing, but the shooting in Dallas, the guy was sitting across and shot some video. He was the only guy that had that, right? And so he told his story, and this is my video, and it played fine. It wasn't, didn't have, he even shot vertically and it played fine,
Yeah.
But, so it's just, I'm just such a fanatic about it. Like, just go tell your stories. Go,
there's
capture good content.
Somewhere along the line, I mean, the very, very first iPhone, the camera was not very good, and they kept getting better and better. And I think, obviously there'll be a new iPhone with an even better camera towards the end of the year.
In September, so it's always a scary moment for me. What size is it? What is it going to look like?
How much does the form factor change?
But I think we've reached a stage where the cameras in the iPhones right now are good enough. I mean, they're not perfect, and far from perfect, but they're good enough.
No, I mean, they're shooting, if you get the 6 Plus, you got the 4K resolution. I mean, not that you need to really shoot 4K all the time. I mean, I rarely do. It takes a hell of a lot of room, but if you need to do something on master for future proof,
Well, we shoot 4K, so I can pull out a shot of Greg, a shot of me,
Right.
two shot, or
Yeah,
something
absolutely.
there. So I've got playroom there.
Absolutely,
that
and
I
that's
would
wonderful.
not have otherwise.
Yeah, that's what's fantastic about all those new tools. And where they're talking about dual lens now on the new one, and which scares me because how am I going to put a lens for that? It's not going to be centered. I'm going to slide the lens back and forth. I don't know. So we're getting into all that too, but it's kind of crazy. It just for me, what I wish in my perfect world, they make these adjustments and they leave things where they are. From the iPad Air, when we first made our case for that, it was great, works great. The next generation, they moved the lens 3/16 of an inch up. Now all of a sudden our lenses are not straight, and I had to create a workaround where I tell people just pinch in a little bit.
Yeah.
And for the most part, people are fine with that. But I want things to be right and perfect, We just made one for the Pro, the 9.7 inch, so I think we're safe for that. But everything, because my cases don't have moving parts. I don't want them to. They're going to break. They cost more money when you have moving parts. I'm trying to keep costs down, So anytime Apple says, "Oh, we're removing this or that," I'm like, It's like, mold will be about $50,000.
Yeah.
And it's just, So, if I'm hoping the iPhone 7 is going to have same form factor. I could live with if they do the dual lens. We can figure something out. Maybe there's no lenses anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
But just keep the same size around and thickness, and so it looks like it's going to be. So we're excited about that.
A lot of people see these sorts of things as being threats and making their business harder.
Thank you.
But it's at the same time you can take those same threats and make them into see them as a challenge, see them as a way of improving, see them as a way of making another opportunity.
I'm totally with you on that. There's such an old guard that will not progress. There's a guy at the gym that I work out with who's got a photographer who's always trying to poo-poo things I'm doing, and I'm like, you have an old photography store, dude. I'm all over the world. You're talking to Best Buy. I mean, their biggest thing is their point-and-shoot camera department's dying every day. So they're thinking, what are we gonna fill there? What's space? That's valuable space. What are we gonna put there? So that whole market. I mean, granted, I have a Canon 7D. And it's a great camera. I have some great lenses, but I have to bring it into a computer, and by all that time that I'm done editing, someone's told that story like a day ago. It's about speed now, right?
Yeah.
That's where the iPads and phones, where you can shoot it, edit it, add some color thirds, upload it. It's all right there on the one device. Not only that, you've got GPS and you've got an accurate timestamp, which we love
for all the Apple products. Yeah, it's funny because when I bring in the footage, if I'll do a multicam, I bring in the footage and I do something in Final Cut with it. It just is beautiful. If I bring it in Premiere, it's off sync a little bit, and Premiere tells me Adobe folks are like, well, it's because it's got the bit rate's a little different. Not the bit rate, the frame rate's a little different. There's a workaround. Like, can't you fix this? I mean, because I love going into After Effects and all that, but if I can just do a quickie right-click multicam, I'm done in Final Cut. I'm going to live here for a while, you know. So anyway, but it's just funny that they can't. Now that being said, you guys are the app makers. Why don't you make? Here, I'll tell you something right now that you'll make $1 bazillion on. You need to make an editing program for an editing app that's got layers that you can bring in. The ability to have overlays. I mean, I gotta believe, because there's the Photoshop does something like that where you can do some kind of overlays, I think, on the iPad.
Probably, yeah.
So why can't it be in a video thing? The reason I'm telling you this is that many big organizations, CNN, BBC, all those kind of places, they're like, you know, we would totally go 200% into this if we were able to do these types of things. If we want to put B-roll footage over, we've shot this great interview with you, now I'm going to go film around Sushi Roku, and I want to put this on top of you, you know? Yeah. So like a mini Premiere. And I've been pounding at Adobe, you know, guys, Premiere Clip is something they came out with. That's a fine and dandy little editing tool, but doesn't do nearly as much as I think it could, you know? And I just think a lot of those they're back with the old guard. They don't get it yet. Like, people would be on this all the time, you know.
I think there would be significant interface challenges and UI challenges to get something like that. Dan Leventhal did a really nice NLE implementation, but
I love Dan. No, we've spoken on panels before, but his app is very convoluted.
Yeah,
it's not. My son sits down and plays these things, doesn't have to learn how to, it's very intuitive. That is not an intuitive app. If you're an old Moviola guy, you get it. It's like, this is cool, it's an old Moviola. But not, I mean, who in the world knows that except for old guys?
How many people still working ever used a Moviola other than just for the sake of it?
I can't imagine,
It can't be very many people. So.
But yeah, Adobe would be the right people to do that because they've got a lot of experience in creating a touch interface. So maybe their initial Premiere for iPad is just an opening gambit, and there's a lot more.
I'm on their inner circle, so I wish I could say that's true, but I haven't seen anything yet. So much to the fact where I was frustrated at one point. I'm like, I'm going to go do that, and I took a step back and said, I don't want to get into apps.
No.
You know, that's a whole other kind of.
And although we do apps, we do a very specific type of app. You know, it's metadata driven,
right?
And it's largely XML connected,
right?
So
you have to deal with all these other things that
there are things within that. There's enough within that, and there's enough growth direction where we can use the really smart APIs that are being developed to start to make our apps smarter, to make that organisation, stuff that's not really at that literate level, but stuff that's a little bit more for the documentarian, the reality TV folk who've got an enormous amount of material that they've got to get organised and some story streaming stuff.
Well, which always interests me. I mean, since we've talked about this before, I mean, everyone needs to have their stuff organized. It's just got to be. Get it out to the masses, the everyday, the soccer moms that shot Junior's game, I mean, what's this, img.294.mov? What was that? I don't remember, it's like.
And it's becoming more and more important. I'm looking at, friends of ours in the industry who've got young children who are, obviously shooting a lot of video of their kids and they're putting up on. They're going to have so much more material than our parents had. And so, how are you going to find that shot where little Jack was playing already? I guess this is probably a gimme question because I think I already know the answer, but a lot of people find this democratization threatening, where anyone who's got an idea can produce, and I think that's one of those things that has its pluses and minuses. Do you think democratization is a good thing in general?
It's a good thing because what about the next Steven Spielberg, the little kid out there who wants to play in the backyard and now he has the ability to tell little stories with his friends, The bad news is there's so much noise out there that you've got to sift through it all, I mean, we're finding Rhodes doing it every year. Filmic Pro does it, and then we just launched a Iographer Showdown. We're asking for people to tell us about where they've traveled this summer, to just try and find new voices and new stories. We did a contest last year, and the winner was this guy that ran a deaf clinic in India, and just told a story about the daily life there of these poor people that are having to deal with all that. And it was just such a heart-wrenching and beautiful story, though, about what, and I would never have known any of this existed and whatnot. He had his little iPhone 5, that was it, and he had said it was a small one, so he had, as far as hard drive, so he had kept changing it every, and dumping the footage, and the audio wasn't so great, and so we were just enthralled by it. And so we picked him the winner and sent him a ton of gear, and go make some more stories. That was great, and so I think it's great. I think it's bad that there's so many things thrown out there. I mean, you go on YouTube now, and every day there's how much millions of things are thrown up on the web. So it's just sifting through. The other day I had the horrible part, in my opinion, is not really the democratization of it all. It's the people that are doing so much live stuff of nonsense. There was a guy that I know that he works for a prominent university and usually has some interesting content based around journalism or the football team or something, and it said he was live, and I was like, this is really exciting. I want to see what's going on. Maybe he's at the football field or what. I flip it on, and he was on a reclining chair with a cat, and just like saying, say hi, And I'm like, why did you feel that was something we needed to watch,
Or Rick Morcom was doing the sunrise live in Boston.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're right.
I mean, why don't you just take a really beautiful still and put it on Facebook?
That's good, like one time. Do it once. Don't give me all the time. I mean, a good example is I was in Hawaii, walking in on my wife and son and I were at Pearl Harbor. My son is like, I don't want to be here. I want to be at the pool. So my wife and him went back to the hotel. I'm like, I'm in Hawaii. I'm going to go tour around. And so I would gone, did my thing, and then I went to the Missouri, the battleship Missouri, which of course was where the Japanese signed their surrender. It was a big ship in World War II, and I went around and I decided to pull out the Iographer and put a mic on myself and Periscope, and I had 467 people.
Wow.
And everyone was asking questions, and I thought this is a useful situation. They may not ever go there, but now I'm taking them on a virtual tour with me, and I'm answering questions with them. And that was something that, for example, the Miami Dolphins are starting to do, like I said, where they have their players after practice will Periscope with fans. So now you've got, I mean, if I was a musician these days or an actor or something, and I could get, this is how I build my fan base, I mean, the sky's the limit,
A young performer called Troy Sivan, who's originally from South Africa, but identifies as being Australian since he moved there when he was 2.
That's funny.
Went from the time he was 13. He started to build his YouTube channel at 13, and now he's doing.
What is his name again?
Troy Sivan.
I think I've heard of him. Yeah.
He's just doing. He was on Jimmy Kimmel the other night.
Right. So he interviews all these big stars and stuff, doesn't he?
No. He's just put up his own covers. And
okay.
Other people's songs, and then as he started to do original material, he promoted his first.
So
EP.
now you got all these fans. You put your own thing up. You sell it. I mean,
building their fan bases now in the millions.
That's it.
Subscribers.
If you've got the hustle, you can do something with this.
Of course, he's also managed to get roles into a couple of motion pictures. Young Wolverine, I think. In one of the. I could be wrong on that. Don't fact check me.
So let's go back 10 years.
Yeah.
No one knows who this guy is.
No one knows.
No one will. Chances are nothing.
No one will ever know who this guy in Perth, West Australia is.
So that's exciting, right?
Yeah.
So that's the plus of it all.
And he even cast his one of the roles in a music video out of Facebook friends.
Oh my God!
Because they couldn't find somebody who looked real. All the models were just too over the top, and they were all worried about kissing another guy on camera. And so he built an entire business out of business fan base,
absolutely
multinational touring career, team career out of
So
YouTube.
We've identified 3 things then. There's more cameras, distribution, and social networking. This is three huge things that are different from 10 years ago.
I saw I think it was back in the days of MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
And MySpace had musicians' pages, and I thought
Right.
every record label in the world needs to be worried right now
Yeah.
because what did a record label bring to their artist?
Get the word out, yeah.
Well, they brought the publicity,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they also brought the recording.
The recording, yeah.
Which you can now do in your bedroom to the same sort of quality. They brought the design, and yes, you can find that, if you need to, go to Fiverr and get an album cover.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Maybe somebody in Indonesia doing it, but you don't
So
care.
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And then you use Facebook and other social networks to get the word out. You use YouTube to get your videos out there without the amazing cost and difficult it used to be to host video.
That was it was different. They're making it so much user friendly now. It's simple to set up a website. I mean, you got these places like Wix or Tumblr, or and all of a sudden you got. I mean, I talk all the time to businesses. Even places I just go around town. I'm like, do you have videos of this food? Are you doing Instagram? This looks delicious. It doesn't take much, and it's free. Are you kidding me? You got to do it.
It takes a little effort.
Oh my God! I mean, I've found my main things are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay.
And I get that's where I get a lot of traffic to my website directly. And in the words of Gary Vaynerchuk, who I don't know if you guys know who he is, but I love him. I love his books. He gets me fired up. He's like, give 51% to your people, and you're going to get it back in spades, And so I'm always, let me show you how to do this. Let me give some products away. Let me, whatever. I'll do tutorials and just any kind of content that's quality for them to learn something from.
Yeah.
And that brings back tons of traffic, So, and anyone can do that. I'm not smart, maybe a little bit, but anyone can go out there and do these things, And it just boggles me that if you're a business today and you don't have any kind of social presence, I might make pools and I go to your website and I don't see just a couple of pool pictures. Show me some videos and. How do you make these pools? Get me involved with your, with your business. So, it's that's what I love about where we're at right now.
Yeah, social media is very important. I think because it just allows that instant connection around the world, and it gives you that immediate feedback from people, and it builds, as we talked about, it's a way of building an audience very easily.
I mean, I'll throw stuff up on, so basically I'll go up to Instagram and Facebook to put up my video content. And all that trickles into Twitter. And then on Twitter, I'll get some question from some other side of the world about that video. How did they do that? What was it? Oh, well, this is the mic and this and that. And then, was it for sale in Saudi Arabia or Dubai? Well, actually, we have a guy in Dubai that sells our stuff, and here's the link, It's so crazy, how we're so interconnected with that.
I know. Social media is how I made my name, I guess. And
Yeah.
I was in Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia, not a hotbed of production.
Right.
Not a hotbed of anything, really, apart from at the time coal and steel, now gone.
Right.
The steel mill is now completely gone. But I joined an email group to have some commonality with other Media 100 users.
Oh my God.
At the time I was...
That's mine. Thank you.
The sushi and eggplant.
That's mine.
I'll be right back with yours.
And I joined the Media 100 email list.
Wow.
Very early form of social media.
That was social media, absolutely.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. And so I was able to learn something from this guy last week and tell it to this guy this week, and everyone started to think that I knew what I was doing. You've had kind of an eclectic career, it's not unlike myself. What career advice would you give somebody starting out in their career now?
If you're starting out young, find something to make some money while you pursue what you really want to do. And when you're ready to do that, you've got to go 200% into it. When I started this iOgrapher thing, I knew, and I saw that it was starting to catch on, I knew I had to go 200% into this and attack the mainland with my forces, burn my boats at the sea. We had no way back. We were going to take that city or forget it.
Right.
To go with an old Greek adage, and just, really, it's not glamorous at first. You really have to put in 99% of the work and long hours, and but once you really start to get things rolling, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. I don't answer to anyone. Well, I answer to my wife, but other than that, You know, I get to walk my son to school every day, pick him up from school.
Yeah.
You know, it's just such a great life now. You know, took me 50 years to get there, and lots of fails along the way. Let me tell you.
I'm a true believer in the constructive value of failure
Yeah.
in career development. Without wanting to diss anyone at all, but you know, we started out doing training and doing some of the very first video-based training for apps like Media 100, Final
Right.
Cut, and After Effects, and then shortly after that, Steve Martin started making stuff for his employer at the time, and we were our distributor.
Oh man.
And ultimately went to Ripple Training and is now doing, and Ripple Training does great training.
Yeah.
I would happily recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Steve has perfected that one thing, doing it still 15 years later. Whereas I find that at 7 or 8 years of something, I start to get a little, well, how can I enhance this? How can I make this more interesting? How can I rev it up a bit because I'm getting bored?
And that's why what you're doing, you're so passionate about it, and every time you keep making better and better things, you know. And
the whole
maybe we can go in this way too, you know.
Yeah, the whole metadata thing, finally is becoming my central focus. Because metadata is the core of everything we do. So everything that I do or we do, but metadata is not something that I knew about 10 years ago.
Oh.
The irony is that back in the mid 1990s, I thought this XML thing I keep hearing about. I'm sure that's really important. What is it? And
That's going to be important one day.
trying to find out what is XML and how do I use it. It's like,
Right.
this seems to be everything to everybody. And now I Google what is XML, and it comes up with my articles that I've written 10 years ago.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, so but it's not until now, and I say this joking, it's not until the last 5 years that I've really worked out what I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
And I'm voluntarily grown up.
Yeah, right. That's why I tell people, my main, I'm running this company, but my main job right now is to stay healthy, to enjoy it. You know, I'm taking such a fitness world leap now that and food and all that stuff, and I got to live. I'm making good money now, and I'm having some great dreams fulfilled. I got to live to do all this now.
Yeah.
So that's, I just think that there's so many opportunities now for everybody. Just find what you love. If you love telling stories, if you love, if you're a social butterfly and you're on doing all these different social channels and you're good at it, there's a lot of companies that'll give you money to do that for them. Think about things like that. Learn how to do a little video on the side so that there's tons of places that would accept, help you out, and a lot of my students are doing stuff for, I get them jobs when they get done with school, and they're doing some great stuff, so.
Very cool.
Good timing to be, I feel like our generation kind of didn't get a lot of cool stuff. Maybe at the very end of it.
I don't know. I'm always fascinated by the ingenuity of the engineering of the 50s and 60s and 70s before we got into this digital era.
Right.
How Disney Imagineers do all those the animatronics at
Right,
Disneyland.
right.
All of that was so incredibly clever.
Yeah.
Sending a man to the moon or sending people to the moon with 32K in the computer.
Yeah.
Wow.
The pre-green screen work that the Disney people did for Mary Poppins.
Yeah. Models, all the stuff they did with all that.
They did for Mary Poppins, they developed and got an Academy Award for a split system sodium screen. They actually shot a real-time travel mat on a separate piece of film.
Wow.
That just separated out, split out the sodium because it's such a narrow bandwidth, lighting that was on the backdrop. And so when I was working with Les Perkins to do some 40th anniversary material for that, he was trying to key off these black original plates.
Wow.
And the Luma key didn't work as much.
Right.
Julie Andrews has dark hair.
Dark hair, yeah.
That, and so it didn't work. But we could pull enough. There was enough chroma left.
Wow.
In the color channel, in the color plate, that we could pull a chroma key out of that on the sodium screen from 40 years earlier.
That's crazy. Wow. Wow.
But they had two cameras going at once. One with a black and white mat, with of course full transparency.
Right.
Les argues that they did the whole lace hat thing simply to show off. because the lace
That
had
they
in
could
front,
do,
in front
yeah.
of the green screen.
Right, that's
Right
wow.
until like 5 years ago.
Sure.
Would have been incredible.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
That's how
I like learning things on your show.
ended up with cartoon penguins.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Wow,
That
yeah.
was actually a real fun. I helped work some green screen work with Wes to do on that.
That's great.
And because I knew a little bit more than he did, that's why he was asking me to
Right,
help.
right.
I put Richard Sherman in the shot, behind the fence in Supercolour Fragilistic, and sitting on the rooftop and little things like that.
That is so
and doing
cool.
an on-set grab through a DV translator into early Final Cut, and we're talking 2005.
Oh my God.
And just making sure that it would work in the basics before we rolled.
Wow.
And I got to work with one of my childhood heroes, Richard Sherman. I mean,
Right.
Richard Sherman wrote the soundtrack to my childhood and youth, really.
Right. No, that's
With his father,
amazing.
of course, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a small world.
Yeah. Well, you must have had an opportunity to work with a whole lot of well-known people.
You know, it's funny as a producer, I got to really. I'm trying to think of the movie that really set me. Maybe it was Last Action Hero, when I was still an extra, which was a horrible movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I saw Arnold sitting there having his stogie and talking with the producers, and I was like, I want to be like that. I don't want to be what I'm doing. I want to do that, you know. And so that kind of inspired me to really eventually get into the production world. But as a producer, I mean, I could tell you stories of Gene Simmons calling me up, one of my childhood, rock star guys, calling me up and saying, "Take me out to a strip club," in the middle of the night. And I'm like, okay, let me get a limo, Carrie Elways, The Princess Bride, coming in, having beers in my room and telling me stories. I'm in the Cannes Film Festival with Icon Entertainment, Mel Gibson's company, and I'm sitting there having a meeting with champagne with Faye Dunaway, and I'm like, my God, this is just and it's sad because a lot of these younger kids have no idea who these Hollywood. They're just like bang bang. What's going on in the next movie? That's there's no stars like there were like in those days.
Before I was, my first career was in theatre lighting. So I went straight to head technician because I'd been doing theatre lighting since I was still at school. And I would be touring production of Jesus Christ Superstar that started in our theatre, so we had long set-up hours. But towards the end of the thing, there was just a get-together in the front offices, and two guys from the cast started strumming a guitar and singing together, and then 6 months later they were Air Supply.
Oh my God! Wow, that's
Who
crazy.
People probably have never heard of.
Right. Well, yeah. Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, so you get to hang around with all sorts of interesting people who other people think are something more than human. When you get to hang with them, you realize that
they're just normal. Although I will say, Kathleen Turner was probably the only diva I've ever worked with.
Really? Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful woman, professional, but loved. For example, in the film we got her in, she had to wear Escada clothing. So we were in Chicago. The movie was called Love in Action Chicago. It actually won an award at the Toronto Film Festival. And we had on Michigan Avenue. People know, Chicago. That's LeMaine. That's Rodeo Drive. And they closed down this gigantic Escada store just for her to go try on her clothes. And I'm sitting there just going, "This is just the weirdest moment of my life." I just grew up watching your stuff, and it just was crazy. But lots of fun stories in that world, and it was good that I was young when I did them all because it would have killed me today. Oh my God, I don't have the stamina anymore like that. But
that's one thing that is nice about what they call a lifestyle business, is that you do have a chance to have a lifestyle that most people don't get to. You mentioned being able to walk your son to work, to school, and
he should be going to work, but
well,
there's laws against that.
In many countries, he'd already be earning his keep, but fortunately, this is not one of those yet.
No, it's absolutely, that's the biggest thing. In fact, I ran into a couple of my former colleagues that are the English teachers and math teachers, I should say, at picking up my lunch the other day, and they were just like, "We're so proud of you. You're so lucky." I felt like they were trapped. I felt bought them lunch. I was like, "You guys, find something that inspires you." I mean, these kids inspired me to do this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was gonna be fine. I was gonna be a teacher. I'd done all my things, and I was just fine with what I was doing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, some flame happened, and I'm in this whole other world now. And it's funny. You never know how things. I was recently doing I started getting into Snapchat back when I was teaching because I wanted to learn what the heck it was. Because I saw these kids on it all the time, and I was like, "What is this? Is stupid. Everything disappears. What the heck? Why do you want this?" You know. But there was how many hundreds of millions of users, right? So I started getting into it, and I found it useful for customer service. So I would these coaches or whatever would contact me through there for a quick question. Hey, this cable's not working. Do I have it plugged in right? They take a photo. And I would do, oh, no, that's not right. Use the other end, you know. And it was just this quick, interactive customer service that I was able to provide, and it's grown since then. So I can't really do them all like I had. I shouldn't have opened my mouth, but it was a great. And all of a sudden, someone had heard that I did that. I was on a podcast about it. That led to me being on Forbes again, and then that led me to go to New York to speak on a panel at this Z-Click conference, which was a social media for corporations. So I'm here, little me, here's Google, here's Uber and OpenTable, and talking about how we're using it, and I'm just like, and they're all, yes, well, once we get things at this level, we have to send it to the next level, and then they approve it, and this, and I'm like, well, really? How long does that take?
I think the lifestyle business and the fitness tend to come together a little bit too, because it's much harder to live and be healthy if you do that whole 9 to 5 routine with commuting either end of that. I mean,
well, even as going just into the teaching world, which wasn't remotely as strenuous as being a producer or whatever, it was a low stress job, but there was long hours. You know, what people don't know is that you would go into work as in your first class. And then when you're supposed to have a break, maybe a parent wanted to come see you, or the student needed extra help or whatever. So then that took away all that. And then after school, you're ready to go home. No, there's a line of people that want something, and you kind of have to. You want to give them. You're there for a reason. You know? So by the end of the day, I always said, growing up, my dad had a construction company, and I would work my buns off all day long and work, and I was just dead when I got home. But physically, but when I would go home from teaching, my brain was drained, and there was no way I was going to go to the gym or for a walk. I was just lay there, you know, and it just really started to affect my health and everything, and it's so draining.
as I said, I've never taught more than one day at a time.
Because you're on stage, you're like blah, 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 blah,
And by the end of the day, or during the breaks, people want to ask questions, get supplemental knowledge, and it's all great. But I'm so sick of hearing my own voice.
Right.
At that point.
And you're giving so much that you end up just
Even at Laxipug the other night, when I came home, I slept like a baby.
Yeah.
My whole brain had been emptied. All the questions that were after, and stuff like that. But so that's the thing. So now I've got a regimen where I work out first thing in the morning, because I know I might have a million things. So I'm going to do video tutorials in the afternoon. I might do whatever. So I got to be done with that, because I will not do it at night. I'll couch, So I love that it mixes like that now I can do it. I have the ability to. I take my son to school, my wife and I go to the gym, we do our class, it's just very, structured now. It's wonderful.
I now have a yard that needs a lot of...
There you go, yeah. And you're doing...
quite a lot of muscle since February, even though I've been pretty good in...
And you have archaeological digs, and that's
Check
fantastic.
my Facebook page if you're really interested in that. What do you think will be the biggest change in the rest of your career?
Well, the good news is, we're 400% bigger this year than the first year we started, and we're in year 3. So it's been like this. It's been insane. We just got our patent, so now anyone that makes cases that are for any kind of mobile device that has handles or has lens adapter areas, that's ours.
Nice.
So in theory, maybe there's a sale event one day, although I love what I do, so I can't see that right now. But I like that we're protected that way. I see, I've got some of my former students working underneath me now in the sales capacity and customer service, and so I see them eventually moving up the channels. They've all said, we just love this, we want to be a part of this forever, who knows, but I see them doing stuff. My son told me I'm never allowed to sell this company, so there's that. So I'm just going to keep going until I drop dead, and it's really changed. It's been life-changing for me, and the fact that I've got more free time and I can travel and I can we can do a lot of fun things, and most importantly is that I could spend more quality time with my family. Really, I think a big problem with the world today, specifically our country, is that a lot of, and I saw this as a teacher, is that parents are so busy, they don't have the amount of time to really focus with their kids and help them and grow with them, And so there's so many distractions now that the kids have from the web, or, that the parents need to be aware of all that stuff, And so the fact that I'm able to, my son can ask me questions, I can see what he's doing, we can work on stuff together. I mean, I have that amount of time now, and that's like my number one thing right now. So that's what I love to do. But it's just, I think it's going to be, like I said, I just got to stay healthy. I see myself having, and I'm not in this for material things. It's just wonderful life. Being able to. If I was a normal 9 to 5, I couldn't be hanging out with you guys right now.
Yeah, friends of similar age, a couple of years ahead of me, have sort of started to indicate that they're already retiring, semi-retired, retired.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what?
What are you going to do?
But I realise they're retiring from something.
From the big,
And certainly of them are retiring from a horrible client base or a horrible employer, and so for them they want to get out of something. But I'm enjoying so much, and I look at my family. This is about doing the family history thing. As you realise, oh wait, my youngest aunt is like about 16 years older than me, but already past the point where the 70. So almost all my family, my aunts, uncles, my mother, my parents' generation, are already past.
Right.
And I look and say, well, that's a great genetic base to build on. So from that point on, it's mine to screw up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
no, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's just a wonderful experience, and that's why I just try and instill in everybody, just do what you do for money, you pay the bills, but keep thinking of other things. I mean, there's teachers I would teach with that. Be like every year in the beginning of the year, just 3 more years to go and I'm out of here. I'm just like, I don't want to get up. Every morning I get up, I can't wait. What's going to be on my computer today? Am I getting an email from Steven Spielberg's picture that using my device, or Manchester United? Can I have some products, or But I'm excited every day, and so that's just been. This has been the best. But everything, like I said, has led up to this. Tons of failures.
I touched on that earlier. The creative use of failure. I think. If you are successful at something, as Steve has been with Ripple Training, you're inclined to stay with it.
Yeah.
You don't have that impetus to say, well, what else could I do? What else, is within my skill set that would...
Well, it's the safety of it.
Yeah.
You're safe here. I mean, he's got a great... In fact, I just gave some money the other day for color correction class that Abba Shapiro is teaching. I go, I like Abba. That sounds good. I'll buy it, so just to touch up my skills. But,
I went through many, not completely failure so bad that I would end up in chapter 11.
Right.
But just not successful, and looking for the next thing, pushing from training, from production to graphic design to visual effects, into training for it, into the buzz, which came about quite from the side. It wasn't ever planning, but to software. I never really saw. Getting to be a software developer or product manager has never been my career goal.
Right. You didn't start out that way. Yeah, you didn't start out like, I'm going to do this.
No.
Just something that came to you. And through your lifetime, it's led up to this,
And I'm kind of excited. I mean, 30 years ago, we had no internet.
Yeah.
And we had no digital production. We had no portable devices, The first iPhone I bought had roughly the same processing power as the Tupperware G3, the blue and white G3 that I bought to run the beta of the first version of Final Cut.
Wow. Wow. Right. I mean,
and that's just in that 30 years. I think 30 years further forward, with an accelerating rate of change, it's just going to be amazing.
I think a couple of years ago was on the first iPad Air. I think came out. It was supposed to be super fast. It had this great chip. It was the first time they introduced the 128 gig drive. So now here we've got the same device, form factor, but it's got 4K ability. It's got a way faster chip in it. It's got 256 gigabytes in it. I mean, every year we're just like bam, bam, bam.
And the rate of change is increasing. It's exciting.
So that goes back to we have to stay alive so we can enjoy these things because they're finally happening. I mean, we might be in a transporter room with Mr. Spock one day. I don't know.
Who knows?
You know.
Well, Dave, where can people find out more about you? And
Please come to iographer.com. Social media, everything's iographer. Snapchat me, you know, hit me up on Instagram, all those things. And I love talking to everybody out there. So
Thanks again for coming to lunch with Philip and Greg.
thank you for letting me have some of my favorite sushi. So appreciate it.